The unforgiving, rugged desert of New Austin is a tricky place to call home. It's sparsely populated, meaning it's mostly rural, and the climate is hardly the most hospitable. But despite the conditions, good old-fashioned human stubbornness, as always, finds a way. In Red Dead Redemption 2, New Austin features two major settlements, Armadillo and Tumbleweed. And in today's revisit, we're going to be re-exploring a mystery that concerns them both, although one perhaps more so than the other. You see, the epilogue to Red Dead Redemption 2 takes place in 1907. The town of Tumbleweed, though on the fringe of civilization, appears to be getting by. And across the desert, Armadillo is a town in serious trouble, gripped by plague after plague after plague. It and its people appear to be suffering a slow, agonizing death. But by the events of Red Dead Redemption in 1911, Armadillo appears to have recovered from its pestilent slump, and Tumbleweed lays abandoned, in an eerie silence, no longer privileged to a constant population. Rather, it serves only as a source of ghost stories, and to be a hideout for societies less than savoury. The question, I suppose, that arises from this is, why was Tumbleweed abandoned? And while there does appear to be an easy answer, the information available suggests there could very well be more to the story. So grab yourselves a brew, sit back and enjoy Tumbleweed Revisited. So to get to the bottom of how this boomtown passed its prime, but putting up a good fight against the lawlessness of the frontier, came to lay abandoned in only a few short years, the best place to start will of course be with the simple explanation. In Red Dead Redemption 2, Tumbleweed is getting by, but not spectacularly. The local economy is hardly thriving. To understand why, we'd best read a newspaper article headlined "A Cautionary Tale." It can be found in the Blackwater Legend number 66 from 1899 and reads as follows. Railroad path brings decline. Tumbleweed residents fret. At future. The once bustling town of Tumbleweed in Gaptooth Ridge, New Austin, is growing quiet. The shops sit mostly empty. The blacksmith is idle. The population is dwindling as wagon after wagon of families leave. Since the railroad bypassed Tumbleweed in favour of Armadillo, trade and commerce has moved away. The last holdouts fear that there exists not much future for their dear town of Tumbleweed, and it will become another casualty of the technological advances that have blighted so much of our westward expansion, with controversial Sheriff Samuel Freeman presiding over a dusty, soon-to-be forgotten relic in the desert. So well before we find our way to Tumbleweed for the first time, the town is on the decline, and if any culprit is to be pinpointed here, it's the railroad, or at least the lack of a rail link to Tumbleweed. And this explanation would line up with the one we get in the first game set in 1911, when the town's population has been reduced officially to literal tumbleweed. One of the missions that takes us to Tumbleweed in Red Dead Redemption, titled Hanging Bonnie McFarlane, sees John and the lawman of Armadillo ride out to Tumbleweed to rescue Bonnie from Bill Williamson's gang. And on the way over, John and Marshal Johnson exchange some words about Tumbleweed.
What is this place we're headed?
Tumbleweed? A lonely, god-forsaken place. Some people say it's haunted. It was quite a town back in its day. Then they built the railroad to Armadillo and went clean past Tumbleweed. And that was that. Pretty soon everybody had up to the left. Now it's just thieves, smugglers, and bandits. Scum like Deke here. Oh, popular spot for lynchings, too.
Let's try to avoid that if we can, Marshal.
Johnson practically confirms the story that the railroad bypassed Tumbleweed is true, and that was ultimately a massive contributing factor towards the town's inevitable decline and abandonment. Now it's only home to outlaws and thieves, who utilized the remnants of the town for shelter. So that's all there is to it, right? Mystery solved, surely. It can't be anything more complex than that. Well, the prequel adds a few fascinating factors that throw that simple explanation up in the air a bit. The first time we lay eyes upon Tumbleweed, It has a population, and that's a whole 8 years following this article. It may be modest by comparison to Blackwater, but if anything, it's got more life in it than Armadillo. The general store is stocked, the gunsmith is stacked, the saloon has a steady flow of clientele. Considering its lack of a post office and rail link, Tumbleweed appears to be getting by just fine, and it's the only settlement of its size in New Austin that's doing so. Meanwhile, Armadillo, which the railroad favoured over Tumbleweed, is bouncing from one epidemic to another. There are bonfires throughout the town burning all hours of the day. The people are diseased to the point where their appearance has become rather unnatural, and those unaffected are leaving in droves. Even the funeral industry is on its backside here, not because there aren't enough people dying, but because the undertaker's also dead. To all onlookers, Armadillo's on the cusp of becoming a ghost town itself. A ghost town surrounded by mass graves. I can't imagine the 8:45 express service to hell is hugely popular. If anything, surely Tumbleweed, being the only other settlement in the region that's of that size, would stand to gain from Armadillo practically imploding. So what we've learned already is Tumbleweed has lasted the best part of a decade being bypassed by a railway, and the town the train does pass through is neck deep in disease.
Plague! Plague! Stay away, stay away. The town is full of cholera. They can hardly bury the dead.
We'll return to the whole Armadillo saga later, but for the time being, I'd like to explore some of the other factors behind Tumbleweed's abandonment that perhaps go unaddressed with the railroad explanation. First and foremost, let's talk about the outlaw activity in the area. New Austin overall is plagued by the activities of a sizable outlaw gang named the Del Lobos, and their reign of terror spans across the state. They have various high-profile hideouts, from Gaptooth Breach to Fort Mercer to Thieves Landing, and considering how depopulated New Austin overall is, they can often be found roaming freely, even going so far as hell-raising in Armadillo.
We're here, Sheriff, and we got the money. You're gonna bring him out?
The sheriff's busy.
We rode a
Why
long
don't you go
way,
around
not
the
that you
corner
shoot
and
up
wait?
the jailhouse. You don't want to disappoint us, Sheriff.
Bargain's a bargain. Put your guns away.
I'm glad to see you're a man of your word. To us, at least.
Amigos míos, sabía que no me dejarían pudrirme
Such a
aquí.
happy reunion.
Hey, you got a gun, don't you? Shoot the man.
Bad move for you.
Today you die the Tumbleweed.
You cheating sons of bitches! Gotta move right now!
In fact, their activities here are so rampant that upon our first arrival in Armadillo, we actually can see the sheriff leaving, at least if we save him.
Oh my. Oh my. If it wasn't for you, sir, if it wasn't for you, whoo, how lucky we are. The hero we so required. Armadillo is indebted to you, though I fear it may be beyond saving. I don't know what you made of that, but it was a close thing. And in light of that, and the sad demise of this settlement, I am resigning my post. You will see that I've packed my valise, but the accoutrements of my profession remain in my desk.
Glad I was able to help you out of that, Sheriff. Sad you won't stick around.
Well, so long. I must see about a train.
So if Armadillo's problems weren't bad enough, they have gangs running amok through their main street. You can understand why people are leaving the place in droves. If you aren't dying from disease, there's a good chance you're getting shot at. And with the Del Lobo presence in New Austin being so widespread, it's impossible to imagine that Tumbleweed is not also contending with their criminal activity. It's natural to wonder how the people of Tumbleweed are faring through this, since it takes nothing short of an iron fist to keep such ruthless outlaws at bay. Well, fortunately, an iron fist is exactly what Tumbleweed has.
Sheriff! Look what I found! He's in the Del
You know
Lobo
what they do
gang!
with them 10 stars in Mexico, boy? Hey! Hey! What's all the nonsense?
You don't release me now, 12 angry Mexicans is gonna ride through this town, burn it all to hell. Only lock me up if you want this town to burn, Sheriff.
We do not respond amicably to threats. What's the charge?
He was robbing a stage.
Then the sentence is death. Make
Hey,
your
no!
peace, partner.
The boy was gonna put me in cell!
This is wartime, and like you said,
No!
we can't take the risk.
Easy there, girl.
Sheriff?
Okay. From now on, trials are going to be quick, and justice even quicker. We will not submit to these lawless gangs.
You may very well recall that newspaper article mentioning Tumbleweed's controversial Sheriff Samuel Freeman.
Get this trash out of town.
Well, this is him.
Where there's one Del Lobo, there'll be more.
Yes, sir. Sheriff.
And as far as introductions go, this one did not leave much to the imagination. You can see exactly why he's controversial. He's as ruthless and cold-blooded as the outlaws he hunts. He has no problem executing a defenseless man in the center of his town without any kind of illusion of due process. His approach to dealing with criminals in his territory can be viewed as draconian. And, well, that does appear to work. It does seem to keep the Del Lobos away from Tumbleweed. But at what cost to the locals? Sheriff Freeman strikes me as a very dangerous character. His approach to justice is a brutal one, and nobody seems to challenge the unhinged extremities to his interpretation of justice. And the guy can be found stood around in the center of his town, all hours of the day, pontificating.
You, tough guy. Welcome to Tumbleweed. Make yourself at home. Treat this place with respect, and we will respect you. Here in Tumbleweed, there is one law. My law. The law. My law is the law, and my law is just and fair and extremely unforgiving. Challenge me, and you will discover a new definition of justice. My definition.
As you can imagine, threatening newcomers is not the best way to go making a positive impression.
Do I seem like a joke to you? Is that it? Is it?
No.
No, sir, it is not. Correct. No. Behave.
It doesn't take much to come to the conclusion Sheriff Freeman is not in the market of being liked by his underlings, those he serves, supposedly. Rather, he goes to great lengths to ensure the residents of Tumbleweed understand the consequences of any improper activities. He's here to ensure the law is respected, whether that be out of righteousness or fear.
All of you, this is Tumbleweed. We are the end of the civilized world. Anarchy exists just outside this town, but here, life is good. And life is good because we follow the rules.
Hey there, partner.
Disobedience will be fatal. None of you forget that. Treat us with respect and we'll love you like family. Misbehave, and we'll slaughter you like a hog.
And the guy isn't just talk either, he means business. He can one-hit kill us, meaning if trouble blows into town, trouble gets blown away. Sheriff Sam Freeman is not a man you want to be on the bad side of. But despite his ruthless tactics, a case can be made that he's necessary for Tumbleweed's survival. We see how bargaining with the Del Lobos is working out for the lawmen in Armadillo. You give them an inch, they'll take a mile, they'll take 100. They'll overrun your entire town, turn it into a shooting gallery. Defending civilization on this remote frontier from this savagery surely takes a very firm touch. Love him or hate him, Freeman offers no quarter. He doesn't parley, he doesn't negotiate with those disinterested in the way of life he's protecting. He and his entourage of deputies sniff out these societal blotches, eradicating them without hesitation or remorse. And we can aid him in his God-given quest to put the Del Lobos to the sword.
I didn't want to be this varietal of sheriff, but the situation demands it. Just take that bounty poster there and you'll find out.
While he's not terribly keen on outsourcing his duties, the fact that he does, by hiring us as a bounty hunter, suggests a lot about his character. Particularly that he's not too proud to accept an outsider's help.
These Del Lobos been killing, stealing, torturing, and tormenting the good people of this region for too long. Only good one's a dead one. Except if they know a thing or two, and I believe this one does. You bring him here, I'll have a few words, and then I'll send him to St. Peter. You have my sworn oath on that.
He may be bloodthirsty, but he is that way because he views it as necessary, and it may be the only thing keeping his town from the abyss. But he's no crazed dictator. What he does for Tumbleweed. He kills the Del Lobos that are only going to cause him problems, but those who might yield information, he keeps alive long enough that they'll provide it. He compromises on his idealized view of what Tumbleweed should be for the greater good of the town itself, enlisting the aid of a bounty hunter to pursue some Del Lobos, and isn't hasty to execute those that might possess valuable information. What I'm trying to get at is, while Freeman's behaviour is certainly on the extreme end for a lawman, we're not necessarily dealing with a maniac.
I'll have every Del Lobo in Austin come looking for me.
Better hurry on up. Tumbleweed Sheriff is real quick to execute.
But while he may not be off his rocker, the question we have to ponder is, when you're clinging to a dying idea, at what point does that stop mattering?
My friends, they're gonna come for you.
Then they'll die too.
What I mean by this is, Sheriff Freeman might be desperately clinging to a lost cause. Tumbleweed is getting by just fine in 1907, but by 1911 we know the place is abandoned, so what changed? If we explore some of the businesses in town, maybe some of their dialogue might be of value to us here.
Less and less folks coming by the saloon these days. Place will be all but gone before too long. Much as I appreciate Sam's efforts, it'd be good if he could stop killing so many of my customers.
The barman in the saloon complains that Sheriff Freeman is killing so many of his customers. Perhaps his intolerant attitude towards injustices is directed inward towards the locals of Tumbleweed just as much as outward, defending against the outlaws who would see it burn. And that can't help a humble town in the arse end of nowhere with no real links to anywhere that people might actually want to go. It's one thing for the railroad to not service this place, but it's another for the sheriff to be killing residents, and in failing that, thinning the herd with regards to how many people come to Tumbleweed to enjoy the services of the saloon. Either way, morally righteous or otherwise, Freeman's actions appear to have a very real consequence on the local economy. At what point do you accept that the local law enforcement zeal won't allow your business to thrive and therefore you pack your bags and move elsewhere? You can make an argument for Freeman's attitude being necessary for Tumbleweed's survival, but it would seem you could also make an argument for individuals leaving because it's necessary to their own survival. The dangers of Sheriff Freeman's own attitude are exemplified by his dialogue in Red Dead Online.
If I have to string 9 out of 10 up, the 10th who remain will live calm and peaceful lives. Calm, peaceful lives where their main form of entertainment is public executions.
So yes, civilization this deep into the frontier does need harsh parameters to survive against the harsh wilderness that surrounds it, but those unforgiving rules needn't stray far before they become tyrannical. And Freeman's been at this a long time. We know he was here in 1898 thanks to Red Dead Online. That's 9 years of upholding these hard stances, and if his deputy's staggered reaction to him executing a Del Lobo tied up at his feet is any indication, there have been escalations in his approach to justice. Could that attitude that once benefited the town have backfired, and is now crushing what remains of Tumbleweed's economy, their very population? It's unclear how bad this is by 1907. The locals of Tumbleweed appear appreciative of Sheriff Freeman's efforts, but at the same time, you get the sense that they're also exhausted by it.
It's a new century and we still got the same damn sheriff.
Much as I appreciate Sam's efforts, it'd be good if he could stop killing so many of my customers.
What's this town coming to?
There's a 4-year jump between the events of the epilogue of Red Dead Redemption 2 and the first game. That's a long time for things to escalate further. Perhaps that became a problem and combined with the lack of a railroad link, ultimately resulting in what's left of the town slowly fading away. or maybe indeed rather rapidly. Now we know by 1911 the buildings of Tumbleweed have laid abandoned for at most 4 years, yet their condition has severely deteriorated in that time frame. Now I know most of the buildings in a boomtown are made of wood, and wood is not the most durable of materials, but even the brick jail is in a markedly worse condition to the version of it we saw in 1907. There are multiple potential explanations for this rapid decay. We know the town is utilised by gangs, and those gangs may very well use it for training, or there may have been multiple shootouts here. Tumbleweed may very well have died with a bang, not a whimper. That could explain it as well. Or in fact, scavengers looking for relatively inexpensive materials might have come along and taken some. All I know for sure is it's very interesting how quickly these buildings appear to have become derelict. Granted, some were already abandoned and quite tattered, but in a very short time span, the decay has become comprehensive. The idea that this place was a vaguely functional town only a few short years ago just doesn't seem all that believable when looking at it. But there are plenty of rational assumptions for how this came to be. The only thing that might raise a question mark can be found in the church. For it's in this former place of worship, now allegedly haunted, engraved on the pulpit front and centre, we can read the words, "The devil has got into that beast." This is believed to be a cut cheat code, one you'd enter into the cheats menu and it would do something. Supposedly it was meant to give the player a ridiculously good horse, but it doesn't do anything, so I suppose we can speculate over its meaning. Could it imply that Tumbleweed died with something horrific happening here? Or maybe somebody wanted to leave behind an ominous message. After all, Tumbleweed is supposedly haunted now. A legend among players suggests it might be, there's no evidence for that. In-game it appears to just be a convenient explanation for the outlaws that might use Tumbleweed as a temporary home base every so often to keep travellers away. Maybe this is best interpreted as an addition to that story, or maybe it's not canonically there at all, it's just a piece of cut content. Or maybe, just maybe, for an unknown sinister reason, somebody carved it into the pulpit in this abandoned church as a genuine message, perhaps a warning. I'm doubtful, but it is an interesting thought. But while I don't have cause to genuinely believe some horrific event occurred here that brought Tumbleweed's civilized existence to an abrupt end, I do believe it's plausible that Freeman had a hand in inadvertently driving the populace out. Maybe that, or the Del Lobos finally got the best of him. After all, they're aware of him, and they aren't fans, and why would they be? He actively pursues them, and he's more than happy to kill their ranks.
Sheriff Freeman, he pay you to kill my men? He pay you to kill me? You're just an assassin!
You asked for Esteban Cortez? Here is the son of a bitch.
Mr. Cortez, we meet at last. The cell there is made up nice especially.
You're going to die! Damn you, cabron!
After all, Freeman's been contending with the Del Lobos since 1898 at least. I'm sure they have a strong desire to see him bleed, but by 1911 they're gone too. And if we partake in the 2 bounty hunt missions we can get from Freeman, we apprehend their leader, but who's to say another one didn't crop up? Now, were this the case, Tumbleweed would be left undefended, without the firm leadership it requires, as it's very difficult to fill such absolute shoes. That would surely drive people away as well, so it's a possibility. Either way, by 1907 I think it's fair to say Sheriff Freeman has been crucial in Tumbleweed's survival to that point. If anything happened to him, or his unforgiving tactics escalated to more minor offences, or indeed he snapped and started killing for speaking out against him, it's sure to have a detrimental effect, so that's definitely a factor to consider. So far we've got a combination of factors: the railroad bypassing Tumbleweed altogether, the Del Lobo gang presence throughout all of New Austin making it a very dangerous place to be, and the highly cynical, ruthless sheriff desperately holding the town together. But to return to the one thing that's propping up the town's relevance, and perhaps enabling it to survive well past its expiry date, we have the chaotic so-called curse of Armadillo. To get to the bottom of how important Armadillo's state is to Tumbleweed's continued survival, we need to acknowledge a couple of things. For instance, The fact that by 1911 the town has miraculously recovered, in time for Tumbleweed to become a ghost town, but particularly just how bad the situation is here to the point where to some it seems unnatural.
So, not sure you passed through Armadillo at all. Whew. Place like hell on earth these days. Used to be quite a nice little town, too. Now it's just dust storms and disease and death. They taking to burning bodies because they can't bury them fast enough. I mean, when you see it, it really feels like something biblical. And I ain't a religious man.
This camper we can find while out riding in New Austin is right. The situation in Armadillo is dire, and newspaper articles confirm that it's one disease after another, with the most recent reading as follows. Cholera epidemic rages. Armadillo under quarantine. Scores dead. A severe bout of cholera has broken out in Armadillo, a town still reeling from the brutal scarlet fever epidemic at the turn of the century that left a significant portion of the town dead. Reports indicate that as many as 3 in 4 residents are experiencing symptoms of cholera, including diarrhea and vomiting. Armadillo has been plagued with poor sanitation conditions for many years, adding to the spread of the disease. The town has had such troubles over the years with pandemics and dust storms that some refer to the Armadillo curse and warn people to stay away.
I certainly ain't never read the Bible on account of me not reading and all, but for a place to turn like that, so bad and so fast, you can't help but thinking, this can't be of natural causes. Folk there are calling it a curse. And I ain't a superstitious man, but it's hard not to see it any other way.
This implication of a curse is interesting. In Red Dead Redemption, Armadillo is fine. There are no dust storms, there are no diseases, but only a few short years prior, the place is a hotbed for inclement weather, death, and misery. The residents even have a startling, sickly appearance to go with it. It's like the disease warps them before it claims them. It's likely little more than artistic interpretation, but it's rough. But a quick chinwag with this town crier fellow will reveal just how rough things actually are.
Hey, friend. Place is full of cholera. Head in there at your own peril. Well, half the town has died and most of the rest have fled.
Still?
Sure. A few years ago it was the scarlet fever. Then it was the desert plague. Then typhus. Now the cholera. Bad business. Some folks say the whole town is cursed. Whole town's got cholera! Here, you can read for yourself.
It does paint the picture of a rather unfortunate town, not necessarily anything unnatural, but that's where a conversation at the saloon plants an even deeper seed that maybe the rumors of a curse have some merit.
Beer and whiskey's about the only thing left that's safe to drink in this town. I should warn you, I'm sick, but so is pretty much everyone else around here. Apart from that son of a bitch who runs the general store. That might be the cruelest irony of them all. Cholera's a horrible business, mister. I wouldn't stay around here any longer than you need to. Especially if you got loved ones expecting you home. Anyway, sorry to be a misery, friend. A few more drinks and I'll have a smile on my face again.
The sickly reveler tells us the only person unaffected by cholera is the owner of the general store. So maybe it's time to take a mooch on over and see the supposedly immune man, for it's here where the continuation of the camper's story gains some serious credibility.
They're saying this figure appears sometimes there in the distance. Black suit and big top hat, then disappears. Shadowy, like he ain't of this mortal realm. The Reaper and his Sunday best.
Who's that?
I don't know. It's just a little portrait somebody gave me once. I always quite liked it. Why?
No reason. Just seemed familiar.
Hello, John.
Herbert Moon, Armadillo's immune shopkeeper, has a portrait in his shop of the Strange Man. For those who aren't familiar, the Strange Man is an enigmatic entity in the Red Dead universe that appears to seemingly test John Marston's morality, assigning him a series of casual tasks to see what outcome John contributes towards. He has no name, he has no real identifying features, he just looks like an ordinary bloke at the time, perhaps too ordinary, too proper. He possesses no shortage of knowledge about John, appears in peculiar locations, and demonstrates otherworldly traits, sending players down a spiraling rabbit hole, trying to solve the mystery of who or what he is, to very limited avail, albeit with compelling theories. Our camper friend describes anecdotal reports of him watching Armadillo from afar, the Reaper in his Sunday best, and now there appears to be a link between Herbert Moon, the only person in Armadillo unaffected by the spate of diseases, and everybody's favourite Red Dead mystery, suggesting there is in fact something beyond natural about Armadillo's misfortune. Now I don't intend to dive too deep into the lore behind the peculiar fella, but he does seem to have a particular attraction towards reprehensible characters. As a protagonist, it's hard to associate this with John, but it is technically true of him. After all, he was once an outlaw running with Dutch van der Linde. The damage he's brought, more importantly the damage he's been party to, had theoretically countless victims. He may be on the path to redemption, that may be his story, but once upon a time he was a bad man. Herbert Moon is bad, but in another sense. Most prominently in Undead Nightmare, he's portrayed as being a rather intolerant fellow. He holds hatred in his heart for more or less every demographic that has ever existed. So when you think about it, it tracks for who the strange man might manifest for. As further evidence for the strange man being involved with Herbert Moon, we need to venture to the strange man's cabin on the edge of the bayou, not far from the city of Saint-Denis in Lemoyne. For it's in here that we'll find a couple of things of note. Firstly, written on the wall in what appears to be wax, we can read, "The moon will shine on in the darkness." Times are dark in Armadillo, and Herbert Moon stands unaffected. But more interestingly, on a nightstand dimly lit by a blood-red lamp, we can see a map of Armadillo. And on this map we can read a scrawled, cryptic message. "I offered you happiness, or 2 generations. You made your choice." To get to the bottom of what that means requires a series of assumptions. But if we shoot Herbert where his brain theoretically should be, but decided to stay home and claim benefits instead, worry not, he'll get bandaged up and come back later, on his body we can find a letter. A letter sent to him by his daughter, Herberta. That is a horrible name. This guy's got an ego the size of New Austin. The letter details how Herberta left Armadillo and married a Jewish man. I can't imagine that sitting well with the prejudice bingo goat who is currently bleeding out on the floor. As this letter goes on to detail, the father-daughter relationship is rather estranged, although Herberta begs her father to set aside his hatred and come see his grandchild when it arrives. But Herbert, being a man stuck in his confusing ways, is cut off by these 2 generations on his own principles. Therefore, he has 2 generations succeeding him, but he cannot have happiness, and ultimately, that's his choice. The theory that stems from this information is that he somehow entered a Faustian pact with the strange man, if the strange man can indeed offer those, securing the future of his bloodline at the expense of happiness, resulting in unintended consequences stemming from crafty clauses in the deal. So what if this pact was to save his daughter's life? It would seem Herbert Moon's wife is no longer in the picture. That would make his daughter his sole heir. And we know Armadillo had a scarlet fever outbreak as early as 1898, thanks to Red Dead Online, considering she's of childbearing age for the early 20th century. By 1907, that places Herberta Solomons maybe in her early 20s, assuming she's not an outlier. I know assumptions are holes in theories, but bear with me. This would mean when Armadillo was first stricken by disease, she would have been a child. Maybe she caught scarlet fever, and the strange man offered a deal. Save your daughter, and secure your bloodline for 2 generations through immunity to the plague. But Armadillo will suffer the consequences for as long as she lived, or let nature take its course. The plague will pass, Armadillo will ultimately be spared, and one day Herbert will learn to be happy again. The selfish man that he is, he would of course choose his so-called superior bloodline, and damn the consequences if it means they happen to others. Of course, this would have worked for a time, Herberta would have been saved, and Herbert would feel like he'd cheated the strange man, feeling happy and having his daughter alive and well, only for her to fall in love with a Jewish man and leave, leaving Herbert alone in a town dominated by misery he created. But the question is, how would this curse lift? Moon is not the kind of man to change his ways. Well, what if the pact expired? I brought up that in this hypothetical, Herberta was likely a child when she caught the disease. What if the curse was only to last as long as she had lived up until that point? Meaning if she was 9 years old in 1898, the curse would expire in 1907. If she was 10, it would be 1908. Were she 11, 1909. Were she 12, 1910. After all, in a conversation with John, the strange man refers to himself as an accountant. He needs to balance the books. The life lived by Herberta up until the point when fate should have claimed her is how long Armadillo will be in debt for Herbert's choice. If that sounds too convoluted, what if it's even darker? What if Armadillo were to be cursed for the rest of Herberta's life, with it lifting only upon her passing? Assuming this letter is recent, she's pregnant in 1907. What if she died? What if her child died with her? However brief, Herbert would have technically had 2 generations for a time, causing the curse on Armadillo to lift soon after the events of the epilogue of Red Dead Redemption 2, as a means to inform Herbert of his loss, because nobody else is going to tell him. So while she lives, Herbert exists in misery, and when she's gone, Herbert lives with regrets. Now an old dog too stuck in his ways to change, no longer possessing anything close to motivation to do so. And the portrait of the enigmatic gentleman is gone, because the books are finally balanced. And that so-called curse lifting on Armadillo, more importantly, the town returning to normal after the best part of a decade suffering from one problem or another, wrestled away the only shred of relevance Tumbleweed still had. It's as that camper put it during the height of that cholera outbreak.
And I ain't a betting man, but I'd put my money on this. Way things are, won't be long before Tumbleweed is the only town left in these parts, and there won't be nothing in Armadillo but ghosts.
I think it's fair to say this camper would be the most unfortunate gambler that ever lived. The final factor is the irony. Tumbleweed only continued to exist for as long as it had because Armadillo was suffering. And when things returned to normal, relatively promptly I imagine, Tumbleweed's final plunge into the abyss took hold. So to conclude, the idea the railroad bypassed the town, opting for Armadillo instead, is the simple answer. But as we've explored, the origins of this ghost town are much more complex. Because yes, it's dwindling due to the railroad's decision to exclude it. The game hardly shies away from suggesting as much.
Del Lobos and the railroad. Tumbleweed's 2 biggest problems. At least they got each other. It ain't the same place I grew up in. Tumbleweed's seen better days, that's for sure. But it's all gonna turn around.
But the other problems by 1907 are also quite massive. The sizable Del Lobo gang are always probing Tumbleweed for weaknesses. Sheriff Freeman is verging on becoming a tyrant, and Armadillo's only a bounce back away from launching Tumbleweed into obscurity. So to conclude, Tumbleweed was abandoned because Tumbleweed was doomed. The lack of a railroad link was strangling the economy. Sheriff Freeman would have to hang up his guns at some point if somebody didn't retire him beforehand. Whether the Del Lobos moved on or not makes no difference, for even if they did go, another outlaw gang would just take their place. And finally, the plight of Armadillo represented a town down on its luck. But if its luck changed, it would go up. Whereas Tumbleweed was outstaying its welcome, it had been lucky. So reasons that I may or may not have gotten carried away pondering given the primary subject matter of today's video aside, when Armadillo took a turn for the better, Tumbleweed took a turn for the worse. And now the town sits a meagre shell of the life it once housed. Abandoned, irrelevant, forgotten. Although it's supposedly haunted now, so take that whichever way you fancy and let me know if you see a ghost. But that about wraps things up. This is a video I've wanted to redo for a while because I watched back the video I'd done on this previously and I don't know, I got carried away with the grain effect and it was unwatchable to me, and I'm sure if it's unwatchable to me, it's unwatchable to many others. I hope this updated video has proven to be superior, more comprehensive, and I'd like to thank you all for watching. I really hope you enjoyed. If you did, be sure to go ahead, leave a like, subscribe, share the channel with your friends, all that wonderful stuff. It would be massively appreciated. Maybe pop me a follow on some social media if you're into that kind of thing. But of course, you don't have to do any of that if you don't want to. And let me know in the comments what you'd like to see me talk about, maybe even revisit next. If today's 10-minute plus tangent was any indication, I have a lot to say about the Armadillo curse, so it might be worth doing an updated video on that. You'll have to let me know what you think. But with any luck, I'll be seeing you all very soon with another video at some point. Until next time, please take care and goodbye.